103rd to the Verge. Westbound Reagan Tollway at Stop and Go 59 to Eola after subboarding roadwork. Eastbound I-80 is heavy Maple to Wolf after a crash. That's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next in our 1 hour heating and air conditioning weather center. Our meteorologist Steve Williams.
Clouds and sun today, warm and humid. Shower, thunderstorm, high today at 90. Partly cloudy, warm and humid tonight, low 73. Sun and clouds, hot and humid for tomorrow. A shower, thunderstorm, the high again at 90. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
75 degrees at O'Hare. Your next news update, 7:30. Breaking news as it happens. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, and your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Oh, doesn't it sound like a drunk happy birthday? Oh, happy birthday.
Yesterday, it was happy birthday Frederick Bastiat, who would have been 219. Didn't make it.
Stinky Botox.
Today, it's happy birthday to...
Thomas.
I think the greatest living economist, Thomas Sowell, greatest living American economist, certainly, which makes him the greatest living economist in the world. Thomas Sowell turns 90 today.
Wow, good for him.
Thomas Sowell, 49 books, thousands of newspaper columns. I agree with Mark Perry, our friend over at Carpe Diem and University of Michigan. There is no economist alive today who has done more to eloquently, articulately, and persuasively advance the principles of economic freedom, limited government, individual liberty, and a free society than Thomas Sowell. And if you're not familiar with Thomas Sowell, or you haven't read his work, or you've just read some of it, read some of it, or continue reading to read all of it, he is just the best. Just a few Thomas Sowellisms, as we're about to talk about free minds and free markets with Senator Jim DeMint. On economics versus politics. Economics and politics confront the same fundamental problem. What everyone wants adds up to more than there is. Market economies deal with this problem by confronting individuals with the costs of producing what they want and letting those individuals make their own trade-offs when presented with the prices that convey those costs. That leads to self-rationing in the light of each individual's own circumstances and preferences. Politics deals with the same problem by making promises that cannot be kept, or which can only be kept by creating other problems that cannot be acknowledged when the promises are made. Just one paragraph. It's just so much wisdom in Sowell's writing. He just packs so much into every sentence. The first lesson of economics is scarcity. There's never enough of anything to fully satisfy all those who want. The first lesson of politics is to disregard the first lesson of economics. Exactly. So it's just a great framing because it forces you to make the decision. Do I want goods and services to be rationed by centralized bureaucracy, by somebody else, or do I want a free market economy where you self-ration based on the trade-offs of the cost of producing what they want versus the prices that are conveyed, and assessing the prices that convey those costs. Can I afford it? Circumstances, preferences. I make my own choices. Politics, government makes my choice for me. Which do you want? Which direction should we go? This is in part the subject of Jim DeMint's new book, Saving America from Socialism, How to Stop Progressive Attacks on Freedom, which will release next week, but I'm sure you can pre-order it on Amazon. Well, I shouldn't say you could pre-order it on Amazon. Jim DeMint may be canceled on Amazon. Who knows? But I'm sure you can order it online. Saving America from Socialism, How to Stop Progressive Attacks on Freedom. Senator Jim DeMint, chairman of the Conservative Partnership Institute now. Thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, it's great to be back with you. And that was a great lead-in from Thomas Sowell. The economics of free markets is so rational. Politics has become so irrational and denies the whole idea of scarcity, particularly with their borrowing and spending. Well, anyway, it was a great introduction, and we address a lot of that in Saving America.
You know, it seems to me that there's a real opportunity for conservatives to step up and change their approach to the rent seekers in Washington and at the state and local level, too. I mean, those rent seekers, they've never been your friends, but I know they've been your financiers. But now they're neither, because they're completely in bed with the Jacobins. And so why not formally announce a disassociation from the Fortune 1000 world, and not in the sense that the government should do anything punitive, that conservatives should use government as a sword, but say we're removing government as a shield for you.
Well, Dan, actually, that's a good idea. At the Conservative Partnership, we've recognized that a lot of the contributions that go to conservative groups from these large companies with lobbyists and special interest actually, let's just say, hurt the mission of those groups. And so we are a nonprofit, but we, as far as I know, have not taken any money from a corporate 500 or lobbyist group. It's mostly just individuals and family foundations and stuff like that who don't have a special interest. We've got to have conservative groups who are focused on the good of the country and are not being pushed towards the swamp. And that you're right. You put your finger on the problem there. The big special interest swamp creatures in Washington give to both Republicans and Democrats, conservative groups, liberal groups, and they have their finger on both sides of it, and that's why you don't see a lot of positive move in the right direction. So some of the greatest conservative groups there have really, I think, been completely changed by big corporate money.
Well, but you also, too, you explained in your book that socialism means something different to almost every American. Can you explain?
Yes, and that's why I wrote the book, and I wrote it as simply as I could with a lot of simple examples, maybe not quite the wisdom of Thomas Sowell, but a lot of young people today, in fact, the majority say they think socialism is a good idea, better than capitalism. But once you find out what they know about socialism, they don't understand it. They think it sounds good, like social media or being sociable. They think it's a matter of sharing and equality, and that's how socialism is sold. But once you understand how socialism works in the history of socialism, where millions of people have been killed, tyrants become very rich, the big government guys get rich, but all the poor get poorer, and society is controlled by government. As we've seen over the last few months, a good glimpse of what it means when government begins to control your life and businesses. What businesses are essential, what aren't, who can go to church, who you can associate with. I mean, we have seen it firsthand what the left will do if they have power. And, we've set a terrible precedent because we've allowed the government to say, okay, if this is what we think is best for you, we can take your rights away. And the main point of Saving America from Freedom is to help people see the threat so that they'll know how to respond to it.
For the young people is one thing. I mean, what about middle-aged suburbanites that have no understanding of the threats that socialism poses, that have no knowledge of what socialism is? They essentially have the same sort of simpleton viewpoint that you were describing young people as having.
Well, you're right. A lot of folks are essentially ignorant of it, not just of socialism, but why capitalism works. And you gave a few of the reasons in talking about Thomas Sowell, but capitalism forces greedy people to work hard to serve others in order to make money. And so there are a lot of checks and balances in competition and transparency. It's not perfect, but a lot of what people don't like about capitalism is really crony capitalism, when government and big corporations get in bed together. And I explain a lot about this is because the young people think that capitalism is for the rich, for big Wall Street. In fact, capitalism works the opposite. It keeps those accountable if government doesn't give the advantage to these big companies, which it has done, and we need to expose that and begin to try to change it. And again, the main point of the book here is that there's hope. I know we can fix this, but Americans have to know what's working for them and what's not, and how we can move our country in a positive direction.
And you mentioned in your book, too, that even 20% of Republicans have a favorable or positive view on socialism. Where'd you find those people?
Well, no, I work with a lot of them, and they may say they're not socialists, but when it comes to how they vote, you can tell when you look that almost every time these people are voting for more centralized power in Washington, whether it's education or health care, they seem to think there has to be a one-size-fits-all solution, and that's a socialist mindset no matter what else you call it. We need to devolve power. The states aren't perfect, but like the COVID virus, we see how states are handling things differently, and we can learn from that. If the federal government does it, we don't learn anything, except things usually get worse. So this is a time where Americans have to step up and fight for their freedom, and they begin by understanding what socialism is, why free markets have made America the most prosperous nation on earth, and how we can actually save our country.
It seems to me that it's not going to be possible unless you get a change in the curriculum at the K through 12 level. And change in the curriculum at the K through 12 level is coming, but it's coming from the 1619 Project and other ahistorical, pseudo-intellectual leftist activists. It seems to, scholarship like Thomas Sowell and other thinkers at least being part of the curriculum. I just don't see enough of a push from conservatives in that direction. I mean, clearly we haven't learned from what the left has done over the last 50 years by taking over all of our cultural and civic institutions, starting with K through 12.
You're exactly right, and that's my first recommendation in how we change this is education choices. A number of states now have moved towards what's called education savings accounts or education scholarship accounts, where you actually attach the money to the child. And we've seen it now in about 15 states and to various degrees. States are leading the way, and the minorities and at risk and the poor benefit from this more than anyone else. And so there are ways to solve this, but you're right, we cannot keep educating our kids in government schools and expect them to understand how freedom works. And so that's the first recommendation, but it's not out of reach because a lot of states are beginning to move that way. They can't get the federal money to follow the student, but that's only about 10% of the funding. State and local governments can do a whole lot more to give parents a chance, and they won't choose a school that teaches a 1619 project. I guarantee you the majority will choose a school probably that's faith-based, that has good character teaching, that has some discipline, the things that we've thrown out of public schools that we know work. Parents will choose because they know it's best for their children.
How important then is November in terms of the prospects of restoring a free market approach to the American economy, to our interactions with one another? As imperfect a vessel as President Trump is, it seems to me that are we going to be a free market economy, or are we going to be a command control economy, and society is on the table on November 3rd?
I think the contrasts are so clear this time. If America does vote for Joe Biden, they've clearly made the decision that they want to move away from everything that's worked in the past. So I think elections over the last couple of decades have become increasingly more important. Certainly it was important last time. Hillary Clinton would have dug us in a deeper hole than Obama did. But for America to make a choice now, after they've seen what the Trump economy does when you take down the regulations, when you lower taxes, when you move more decisions back to the states, we saw the results of that. And if America votes against that, that's going to be a sad day for our country. And so I see this election as critically important. One of the things we're working on at the Conservative Partnership is to help put good people around the president in his second term, good conservative folks who agree with his agenda. The big problem he's had his first term is he kept too many of Obama's holdovers, and a lot of them have been working against him. So we're working with some of the folks there to try to recommend some of the top conservatives from around the country to work in the administration, so he'll have some good people around him.
And how do you think he's been handling, COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter protests and people trying to tear down statues and erase history?
Well, considering what he's been up against, and no political figure that I've ever known has been maligned and mischaracterized and lied about constantly as much as he has, I frankly don't know how he survived it. So whenever he tweets something I think maybe he shouldn't have tweeted, I realize he's the only one a lot of times who's defending what he's doing. But I think he's doing fine. I think the way he handled COVID, where he deferred to a lot of the doctors and scientists, I think in retrospect we're going to see that was a mistake, because someone who's trying to eliminate all the risk is not going to make the best decisions in a free society, because we can't eliminate risk. And if that's our criteria, we're going to give too much government control and find that government control doesn't eliminate the risk either. So I think that Trump was off his game a little bit with the coronavirus, because he was not acting from his own instincts anymore. And he's starting to get that mojo back. I think it was good to see him at the rally last week. But I think he deferred to the states for all these lockdowns and things, which I think was the right thing to do for him, not to try to do it from the federal level. But I was at a hearing last week for the House of how to get the federal workers back, to show the country how it should be done and that it should be done now. So the federal government can do a lot, and Trump is taking charge of that. The rallies, they're not really rallies, they're riots and protests and the burning of things. It's a lot of this is initiated by mayors and liberal governors. I think the president's kind of at his wit's end, because the Constitution really doesn't allow him to go in and solve these problems unless he declares a national emergency, which is kind of a last resort. So it's I think this is tough for him, but it's what the left tries to do, is tries to create complete chaos and anarchy so people will lean towards government for help. The left uses crises to take more control. They did it at 9/11. They did it to the financial crisis, took over most of the financial industry, and now with coronavirus and all of this chaos, you see the government taking even more control.
He is Jim DeMint, former United States Senator from South Carolina, chairman of the Conservative Partnership Institute. Now his new book, Saving America from Socialism, How to Stop Progressive Attacks on Freedom, which releases next week, but I'm sure you can order online right now. Jim DeMint, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you both. Good to be back with you.
Take care.
Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
You take for granted the doors and entryways you use every day to get in and out of your facility. They do their job and everything's fine until it isn't. Your commercial door is stuck and your work vehicles can't get out, costing your business big bucks. Or maybe you're facing a fine for fire doors not being up to code. Did you know fire doors need to be inspected annually? The Industrial Door Company will ensure you're compliant, maintain records, and maintain all your facility's doors so you're ready to do business. And as things get moving again, now is a great time to make sure your commercial doors are ready for the coming increase in use. Visit industrialdoor.com to see a full range of products and services. Stop losing big bucks because your commercial door is stuck. Call anytime, 847-258-5620. That's 847-258-5620. Their team will be there to get you back in business. Since 1982, the Industrial Door Company takes care of your doors so you can take care of business.
Got another Thomas Solism.
Okay.
It is his birthday.
Yes.
It was Thomas Edison who brought us electricity, not the Sierra Club. It was the Wright brothers who got us off the ground, not the FAA. It was Henry Ford who ended the isolation of millions of Americans by making the automobile affordable, not Ralph Nader. Remember that.
Oftentimes, the best defense our body has against catching anything is our immune